Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Byte Happens, the podcast where we explore big ideas in tech in ways that connect with everyone. I'm Flavia Taborga, and if you've ever wondered how we went from massive computers filling rooms to running a business from the comfort of your laptop, today's guest has lived through that transformation and helped others do it too. Kevin Lalor is a founder and CEO. He has helped companies implement cloud software since the very early days. He's worked with giants in the industry, launched multiple businesses, and today we'll hear what he has learned along the way. Kevin, welcome to Byte Happens.
Hi, Flavia. Thank you for having me. Happy to
Yeah,
be here.
great. So you've been in tech for over 30 years. Can you give us a short summary of your path, what you did today, and how it all started?
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate that I came into the industry when I did. I really feel that way because I was able to see the evolution from when I started, and I started my career at IBM, and we worked with companies, and at that point in time, people's IT was very mainframe based. Their computers sat in a very well controlled computer center with air conditioners and raised floors, and the computers were often cooled by water, right? And it was quite an ordeal. A whole staff, a team would maintain these systems, and the way that the users would interface was through a monitor, right? A terminal, right? A green screen with with characters on them, and that's how we interfaced with the computer. There wasn't interaction between companies. I mean, there was some rudimentary email, which is very much like text today, but you could only communicate with people in your own company. And we thought that was very exciting, leading edge, and it was at the time.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And over time, did you ever think that the tech industry would evolve to what it is today, or you thought like its scope was limited?
Yeah, it's hard to put yourself back in that position and imagine what the future would look like. It's the same as you're doing today. What could you imagine the future? Everybody had these different ideas right from the beginning. Is our computers going to replace us? Right? Is it going to be like the Jetsons, and you're going to have robots, making you dinner at night? And what?
Yeah.
There's all those kinds of discussions, and it just very slowly we started heading in a direction that's who knows where it's going to be, but at that point in time, it was hard to imagine that we'd be in a world where we are today. Personal computers were just hitting the market, and it was personal productivity tools. They were not connected to the mainframe at all until later in my career, and and that was the big question: is how is the individual personal computer going to work with or disrupt or replace the centralized mainframes? That was the big subject matter when I first entered the industry.
Yeah, and I assume as the years evolved and like these new devices, smaller, lighter, were kind of like a boom, because they're very different to what they really used to be.
Sure. Every year, as technology grew, the mainframes were getting smaller. They were getting more powerful. They no longer needed to be cooled by water, and there was air cooled systems. They didn't require raised floors any longer, and you could store more and more data on it. And just as we're seeing today, but at that point in time, computers were primarily there to run the core back-end infrastructure of companies. The term that we used at IBM was GLAPR, GLAPAR, and payroll, right? That was most companies had these types of applications which were running on their mainframes. Later, things evolved into the term bicarsa. I remember that, another IBM term: billing, inventory control, accounts receivable, sales analysis, right? And there really wasn't a plethora of off-the-shelf applications that people were purchasing. For the most part, it was companies were hiring a numbers of programmers who were writing these applications specifically for each and every business. and then we saw that evolve, right? So and there was
Yeah.
early pioneers out there that were selling repeatable enterprise solutions that companies would purchase and then adjust and adapt and tweak them to meet their needs.
Yeah, got it. And you built a cloud first company in 2004. I want to deep dive a little into your journey. What pushed you to start your own company? And it will be perhaps really helpful for the audience if you could first break down what the cloud really is before walking us through your path.
Okay. First, I'll just take a moment and introduce what my company did. Is Business Intelligence 101 helps companies solve business problems with technology. At the root of it, that's what we did. And as we built our own company, we had that same technology that was running our firm, and we had our own little data center with all of our servers built up, and we had a team of people. Initially, it was internal, and then we went to an outsourced firm that maintained our infrastructure. My first introduction to something that can be the closest thing to a cloud at that point in time was my email filtering system. It was a product called Postini. I don't know if you ever heard of that, Flavia, but it was a service that would clean people's email, because email was becoming the killer app, right? Everybody was starting to use email to communicate with other businesses and internal. And not long after that, the spammers started just invading, and 80% of people's inboxes were spam. So there are companies that would buy software that would run on their servers, and it would attempt to clean the spam off of their mail servers. And then the Postini service actually ran in a central data center. It rerouted people's emails to their servers. They would look and clean out the emails and remove all the spam and malware, and then send clean, valid emails on through to the end users. And for me, it was phenomenal. It was a brand new approach to things. And I remember going through our annual upgrade. Well, our Exchange server needed to be upgraded, our file server, and I remember getting a big quote from our outsourced provider to say how we are going to update, patch, get to the current version of all of our applications that were running our business. And I remember asking, well, what about this Postini? And they said, oh, Postini is it's a service. You don't really ever have to worry about that. It's always updated. It's being managed on its own. And I just thought back and said, that makes a lot of sense. Why am I hosting all this here when there appears to be options for me to move to the same type of technology, right? Amazon Web Services was just launching, and we could actually put our file server on Amazon Web Services. We could replace our CRM system with Salesforce, and we were a very early adopter of Salesforce. NetSuite is a whole financial platform, and we moved to NetSuite to run our business. So really, everywhere that we could, we really found internally that this made a huge amount of sense for us. It reduced our operational costs, and more importantly, the drama that would take place unfortunately, too regularly of a basis when users would have issues, because we started with a central office and everybody would come to the office, and then we evolved to people working remote. And when a remote person couldn't access the core infrastructure of the company, they really weren't productive. So addressing those problems threw a major wrench into your day if that isn't what you were planning on. So we moved to the cloud. We were an early adopter. We were so impressed by the returns that we had as a company, we really became evangelists. And that means that companies like us were able to eliminate this infrastructure that they were maintaining and be able to move their companies to equivalent applications that ran in a data center that was shared amongst hundreds, thousands of different companies, and managed by just the best people in the industry to make sure that everything was secure. And really, that's how the process started for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you were helping companies adopt these cloud tools at a time when they were not nearly as common as they are today.
Sure.
Were people skeptical of implementing those tools?
Oh, very much. Very much. I mean, when you have all of your company jewels sitting in a data center in a room in the back, and your job is to make sure that nobody could get in there, this data was always backed up, it was secure, the whole company was depending on that infrastructure. To be able to say, I'm going to give all of that up and move that
Yeah.
infrastructure over into somebody else's data center and trust them, uh, so many people they couldn't embrace that. It was too much for them, and the fear and security was the main obstacle that was preventing people from moving in that direction. But there were early adopters, and those who adopted earlier, I think, were able to really have an advantage over their competition. And we know some of those companies, right? You know what Netflix did, right?
Hmm.
Before they used to mail you a CD, and now we know of what Netflix, Dropbox,
Yeah.
you know, and companies like AWS and Salesforce. I mean, they just took off. So yes, at the beginning though, security was a major obstacle, and it really was the exception rather than the rule, that people that were really willing to make this change.
Yeah, that's crazy. And for these early adopters, what would be the cloud features in particular that would get them on board? Maybe not like instantly, but okay, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah. I think there's two major categories which were the drivers. One was reduction of operational costs, that we were able to present a very compelling return on investment, that when they looked at what they were spending to maintain their current infrastructure, and they added in the operational costs specifically of the people, right? And the people that were responsible for the patching, the backing up, and if you could allow those really valuable people to move towards making the company better and more competitive and whatnot, the ROI was very strong. The other thing that it really allowed was it opened up flexibility. And as people moved from everybody coming in and working from an office every day, to traveling and working from wherever they might be, the cloud really allowed that to happen in a way that really wasn't possible before.
Mm.
And at the same time, mobile phones started becoming more and more popular, and those needed to be integrated in the environment. So the cloud really allowed companies to embrace mobility, flexibility, and the logistics that were otherwise really challenging to try to put together. So it's either a combination of those two: the flexibility, mobility, and the operational costs.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it makes sense nowadays that we see all these companies doing what they're doing. And from your experience, are there certain types of businesses that benefit the most from adopting cloud services?
I think today it's fairly well established that
Hmm.
most companies have embraced and see at least part of their business where they can leverage that. But I would say the companies that are more disparately, diversely located, right, where they have people that are all over the country, all over the world, that are mobile. Uh, Trying to provide them the business tools that they need in a typical legacy hosted environment is it's almost impossible, or financially
Yeah.
impractical. So companies that had people out in the environment, consultants that are working at other sites, uh, the folks that go around to different offices, or to offices to work, right? The people that come to houses and buildings and do implement, install projects remotely. Those people are clearly able to maximize that ROI and get the benefits immediately. But really, any company that wants to reduce costs, improve sales and improve the satisfactions that their customers have with their interactions is going to benefit from cloud technologies.
Got it. Got it. From your experience, when you talk to a non-technical client, do you feel like you need to explain the value of leveraging cloud technology?
That's a very good question. And I think that answer would vary on who you're speaking to. But for me, I didn't focus on the technology first, right? The questions that I would have with my clients were, what are the business challenges that you're trying to face? Where do you feel that your competitors may have a leg up on you? What kind of an opportunities do you have to make your company operate better, right? And I'd start there, right? And then we'd try to define the benefits of solving those problems, right? Could we quantify how big this problem is, right? Could we try to determine what the dollar value to the company is to solving that problem? And I believe that's the hardest part, really trying to define the key objectives and define put dollars to that. From there, then it evolves to matching a solution that's going to solve their problem and looking at the options. Surely we could solve this problem with on-premise applications, and this is what that would look like. Right? Here's the other option. We could solve this with leading cloud tools. Here's the advantages and disadvantages of each. Compare the cost benefits and really help the company come to the conclusion of what works the best for them and what produces the best return on their investment. And technology is maybe secondary. The reason why this solution is less expensive or could provide you a better return would be because it's leveraging this kind of cloud technology. But I wouldn't typically want to lead with the technology.
Yeah, it's more like the benefits that they would get.
It has to
on
be.
their needs.
It has to.
Great. Your expertise also lies in implementing ERP systems. Can you explain to the audience what ERP systems are and how they can help a business run better?
Sure. Well, remember earlier I was talking to you about Glapper and Bicarsa and all these core financial offerings. Really, ERP is just the extension of that, right? So where initially we were general ledger AP and accounts receivable, and then they added inventory and billing. As we evolve, we touch more and more of the business, right? It's like incorporating your CRM software into that same core financial platform, including your professional services automation, the way that your consultants report their time and bill their clients and whatnot, and adding their human resources or their e-commerce platform. The more that you can include in this one core infrastructure where you've got a common database and you have visibility to everybody in the company of the different touch points, that's the value of an enterprise system, which is known as ERP.
Yeah. Okay. And to make it easier, can you give us like an example of a common workflow or like the most common workflow they simplify?
Think of the scenarios and the way this operated with before you had an ERP system and you had a number of different disparate applications to solve this, the various problems. So you've got your billing system that would send out the invoices to the customers. And if they didn't pay their invoice, you had the accounts receivable system that would look at all the overdue invoices, and you'd have somebody whose job is to constantly call them and collect and send them threatening emails or phone calls or whatever it would take. And you've got a separate CRM system that's keeping track of your customer interactions and the cases that they have. And you've got a separate professional services automation that's keeping track of the projects and are they on time. And an HR system that talks about available resources that you have, which if they are all in separate silos and separate systems and you have to log in and get information from them, you really don't have a visibility across the company. Yeah. So take a scenario where an accounts receivable person notices that we have a $100,000 invoice to a client that's over 90 days overdue. Well, that person typically would jump on the phone, would be, contacting the customers, sending them threatening emails, right? What's our what's the process if you don't pay this invoice? Well, with an ERP system, and if that same person had immediate accessibility to the CRM system, they can notice that this same customer has an open case or 2 or 3 open tickets that are at the highest level of urgency, right? And they've been open for 90 day, 120 days or whatnot. And if they could look at the professional services automation, the tool, the PSA, they could see that the project that they're billing for was originally estimated to be a $500,000 project, and the customer's already paid $1 million, so it's overdue, right? And so now this is another 100,000, and it's overdue. The project is late, and you could look down and see, from the HR system, that the project manager was in an accident and he is on leave and he's not available. And by the way, the CEO has a call next week with their CEO to discuss this whole thing, right? If you knew all that information, that accounts receivable clerk would take a dramatically different approach than if they just saw, this customer owes us $100,000. Let's go ahead and send them to collections, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the relationship that you'd have with a customer if that approach was taken at the same time, knowing all that other information? So it's bringing all these touch points together and making them accessible and visible to everyone in the company so they can make good, solid business decisions.
Yeah, got it. And do you ever come across companies that tell you, my business isn't big enough for all that tech?
Oh, yeah. Sure. And my response would be, well, maybe it's not, but, are you too small to increase your revenue? Are you too small to lower your costs? Are you too small to want to have better customer satisfaction? The value of cloud-based technology is that it is typically licensed on a per user per month basis. You don't have to write an entire application up front and spend a huge amount of upfront investments in order to get the benefits that are required. But then let's evolve that conversation to what is it the true problems that we're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And what is that worth to you? And you're right. If you're being asked to spend $100,000 on a $10,000 problem, then I would agree with you. Your company does not make sense to invest in this problem. But let's go through and let's let the numbers make that determination and together decide if this makes sense. Because the last thing we want to do as a partner is to recommend a solution that doesn't make financial sense to the client. Why would we do that?
Yeah, that's a great approach. I know one of the things that you're passionate about is enterprise sales. That doesn't just mean big sales. I assume it's about trust, long cycles, and building strong relationships. Am I right?
Those are very much key elements. Yes, Flavia.
Good. And how do you approach selling something that the buyer might not fully understand yet?
And we kind of touched on that before. It's your approach as you interact with the client. And so many clients, they'll make a determination in a back room somewhere that says, we need X, right? We need a new CRM system. We need a new financial platform. We need such and such. Flavia, your job is to go out and find us a new X, right? So Flavia, you run out and you write, if we're going to get a new X, it needs to do Y, it needs to do Z, it needs to do, okay. And I'm going to send that to 10 different vendors and says, well, who does X, who does Y, and who does Z? And you've got all kinds of vendors that are willing to show up and says, yes, we do X, Y, and Z. We also do, 1, 2, 3, 4 and all. And it becomes a giant technology feature function discussion, which is unfortunately the way so many sales engagements operate. And what I try to do is I try to change kind of that approach. It says, let's focus in on that original question. We need an X. Why do you need an X? Right? What kind of a problem is not having an X impact? How is that impacting you? Right? What is the impact of that problem? Right? Is this something that affects just a few people, or is this everybody is being impacted? How do we quantify what that impact is? Right? And that's a difficult conversation to have if somebody thinks that their role is to go get the answers to these questions. Do you provide X, Y, and Z? And it requires trust, and it requires the buyer to realize that ultimately somebody is going to have to answer that question that says, how do we know that this problem is worth solving, right? And by working with a client and having the client see you as a resource to actually help solve the problem, and not somebody that's just going to show you that they have a list of features that match your list, I think it differentiates you. I know it differentiates you from most of the sales teams that interact on sales of any kind, because
Right.
it's very difficult. For a salesperson, they come in, they join a company, they learn about the product, they learn about the features and the functions, and it's difficult for them to change that conversation from product features and functions to a business discussion. And I think that if you can bring the two together, you're going to have a more successful partnership with your ultimate client.
That's great. Yeah, and that's a great lesson, I think, from the sales perspective, to try to bring those two worlds to the sales pitch, I guess. And in your opinion, which part of the enterprise sales process has like the biggest impact when closing a successful deal?
Well, ultimately, anything that a company is investing in usually does one of three things, maybe four. It's either going to help them increase sales, reduce costs, improve their customer satisfaction, or provide some kind of a safety security capabilities. Any conversation that if you can impact the revenue side, you're going to get a lot more interest from the client, right? If it's simple cost savings, that's
Maybe.
interesting, but it's not quite as motivating as if you can tie this into how it's actually going to increase revenues and margins. So I always would try to understand that side of it, the revenue side, and play up on that more than I would on the cost side. And customer satisfaction fits into that, because if you have more satisfied customers, you're going to have less churn. They're going to stay with you longer. They're going to do more business with you, and it evolves into the same conversation. What is your current churn rate to date, right? How does that compare to your competitors in the industry, right? Maybe I can help you identify that, right? I have visibility to large numbers of clients and metrics here that I could maybe tell you how you compare in the industry. But anytime that you can tie it to a revenue side, it's going to be more compelling, and you're going to get higher level executives interested in the topic.
That's great. That's great. And do you feel like over the years, the way you sell has changed, especially with digital tools, AI, remote work?
I think definitely has changed the way I sell, because I was like, when I started my career, I was like those sales reps that I was talking to you about. I learned features and functions, and look, we match your RFP, and yes, pay me the $1 million. Oh, well, you won't. How about 750? Well, what if it's
Yeah.
next week? Will you pay me 500,000? That's just the way that we learned to sell, and really it's been 30 years that I've been running my own businesses, and at this point, I just look at things differently. And it's really, so it totally has changed the way I sell, because now I look at it as a CEO trying to figure out if this is something that my client's CEO could embrace, and why this makes sense at that level. And I would just incent anybody listening to this who's either on the buying side or the selling side to try to think in that matter, right? What is the value of what's being brought to the table here, excuse me, because actually buying software, paying for a solution, signing a deal, it doesn't do anything for the client until they've actually successfully implemented and are reaping the benefits of those. That's what it's all about.
That's great. That's great. Kevin, you were early to the SaaS, software as a service movement, and you've seen it evolve over the years. With the rapid growth of AI, do you see the industry undergoing another major transformation?
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. AI is fantastic, and I think it's going to even have a bigger impact than the cloud, because the cloud is a restructuring of the IT infrastructure. AI is now able to leverage that new infrastructure that you've got,
Yeah.
masses of amount of data in this data center. Now you can have, the entire internet is now available to you to leverage in order to help make decisions. So I see the same kinds of conversations, the same companies that says, well, I'm concerned about addressing AI because of security, right? Because now I'm
Yeah.
going to have a different level of my company's crown jewels, and all my customers and all my interactions are going to be now, being trusted with this partner. And it's the same story that I heard with cloud. So I think that over time, companies are going to realize that data is safe or will be made safe. That both on the provider side are going to be able to make the case that their data is secure and can be structured that it's secure, and then you could start leveraging the capabilities of AI to solve business problems. I have seen companies that are already making incredible progress on the revenue side we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so much of what a salesperson did in the past was prospecting and trying to identify potential clients, and looking at press releases and things like that. Well, now AI could do all that for you, right? Looking at your existing customers and where you've been successful, and finding other companies that are like those like your successful clients, and keeping track of press releases and news wires that are affecting those companies to help you identify that says this event just took place at this company, which makes them a compelling target for you to make contact with. It's incredible in what it can empower a salesperson to do now. Just
Yeah,
one scenario.
for sure the limits are beyond what we can perceive now. And as a CEO, do you think there's a certain area where AI impacts the most?
I still getting my arms around that, but I believe that for sure the sales automation process and how it can leverage your salespeople to help them achieve more is a big one. But surely you're seeing that all over with the customer support, and being able to have the very intelligent chat bots on your website that are going to be able to provide feedback to your clients at a much higher value than the agents. We're always used to saying agent,
Yeah.
operator, and I don't think it'll be long before people are going to feel very comfortable with the service that they get through AI enabled bots. Those are the two areas that I think immediately are affecting the industry today and are going to continue to do so.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but at the same time, it's kind of scary of what it can do now.
Yeah, well, people were scared about having their data in the cloud too at one point in time.
And look at us now.
Look at you now.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your founder life. I assume running a business isn't just about understanding the tech, it's about understanding people as well. What are some of the biggest leadership lessons you've learned alone
Oh
as a
boy.
founder?
I think the first thing that we all have to admit is that we don't know the answers, and we don't know what we don't know. And I think the CEOs who are the most successful are the ones they've made the most mistakes, but they've been able to survive and learn from those mistakes. My recommendation to anybody who's leading the company and moving forward is look for other resources, other peers, people who maybe have been in position to make those same mistakes that you are, and learn from them. Right? Some of that's your own staff, but peer groups is probably the biggest thing that I would promote is getting into some kind of a regular dialogue with your peers, other CEOs that you can share your biggest challenges with. And the odds are that quite a few of them have faced some of these challenges before and could tell you what has worked, or more importantly, what hasn't worked. And be willing to be humble. Swallow your pride and admit you don't know, and accept and listen to advice. That's That's what I'll leave you with.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Very, very touching as well. Inspiring. Um, what's one thing you wish you knew before starting your first company?
I think when I actually was willing to invest in expertise, as compared to when you first start a company, you're so afraid to spend money. You think you have to do it all, right? I'm not gonna. I
Yeah.
can't pay anybody to do this. I don't have the money for that. Your first question, I'm not big enough, right? But to hire experts, look for the best people that you can, pay them what they need, to come join you, and you'll flourish. As compared to saying, well, maybe I can get this person that'll only have to, I only have to pay them that. I think eliminate that the other round.
Yeah.
Hire the best, take a chance, because the people is what will make your organization, and taking care of them and keeping them motivated, and empowered, was the biggest thing that I think I've learned, and over the years, is what I didn't do soon enough.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. Kevin, thank you for being here today. I learned so much from you. I'm sure the audience did as well. You've given us a real behind the scenes look at how the tech we use every day actually got sold, adopted. If someone's listening and is thinking about moving their businesses to the cloud or introducing some of the tools we talked about today, where should they start?
bi101.com. There you
Great.
go.
Great. Is that where people can learn more about your work, or where can they find you?
Yeah. Kevin Lalor, Lalor, at LinkedIn, or at bi101.com. That's our website. Would love to talk to you.
Amazing. Awesome. And to our listeners, thank you once again for tuning into Byte Happens, the podcast where we explore the tech industry and learn from the masterminds bringing it to life. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe to our social media channels. Stay tuned, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next episode of Byte Happens. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Flavia.
Bye bye.